My dearest Clara, the clock on the mantelpiece just chimed midnight. It's a sound I've come to know intimately, the way you know a lover's breath in the dark. It marks the end of another day without your voice. Outside, a gentle rain is falling, tapping against the window pane like a hesitant visitor, unsure if it should knock louder or simply turn and leave. The house is quiet. It's a specific kind of quiet, the one that's left behind when a life-filled sound, a laugh, a song, a shouted, "I'm home," disappears and never comes back. The silence in this house has a weight to it, a shape. It sits in your empty chair at the dinner table. It sleeps on your side of the bed in your old room, which I've kept just as you left it. Tonight, the silence feels particularly heavy. I found a photograph of you earlier, tucked inside an old cookbook. You were about 7, grinning with a missing front tooth, your hair a wild halo of curls that you hated and I adored. You were holding up a misshapen cookie, so proud of your creation, and in that moment, seeing your bright, untroubled eyes, my heart ached with a force that stole my breath. It wasn't just longing, it was a deep, physical pain, a hollow space right in the center of my chest, where your phone calls used to land. Where did we go wrong, my love? When did the thread that bound us so tightly begin to fray, until one day, it simply snapped? I keep replaying our last conversations, searching for a clue, a wrong turn I made, but it's like trying to find a single raindrop in the middle of a storm. All I know is the silence that came after. And so, I'm writing this letter. Not a letter I intend to send, but one I need to write. A place to pour out all the words my heart can no longer hold. I'm glad you're here with me tonight. Stay until the end and comment your city. I want to know where this letter reached. And if you feel touched by this story, don't forget to subscribe softly. It feels like yesterday, and 1,000 years ago, that this house was a symphony of your existence. I remember the day we brought you home from the hospital, as if it were etched in glass. Your father, bless his soul, drove so slowly on the way home, you would have thought he was transporting a live, ticking bomb. He had both hands glued to the steering wheel at 10 and 2, his knuckles white. He kept glancing from the road to you in the rearview mirror, nestled in your car seat, a tiny bundle of pink blankets. "Is she okay back there, Ellen? Is she still breathing?" He must have asked a dozen times, his voice tight with a beautiful, terrifying love. I'd reach back and place a finger on your chest, feeling its faint, rhythmic rise and fall. "She's perfect, Dan, just dreaming." I'd reassure him, though my own heart was hammering with the same overwhelming mix of awe and anxiety. Walking through our front door was like stepping into a new dimension. The house was the same scuffed hardwood floors, the same faint scent of lemon polish, but it felt entirely different now that you were in it. It felt, for the first time, like a home. We tiptoed into the nursery we'd spent months preparing. The walls were painted a soft yellow, the color of morning sunlight. A mobile of hand-painted wooden stars hung over the crib. Your father, a big man with hands calloused from years of working in his garage, lowered you into that crib with a surgeon's precision. He was so terrified he might break you. For a long while, we didn't speak. We just stood there, side by side, leaning over the railing of your crib, watching the miracle of your tiny breaths. He reached for my hand, his rough palm enveloping mine. "Look, Ellen," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "We made a star, and you were our tiny perfect star, and we had no idea yet how brightly you would illuminate every corner of our world. That first year is a blur, a beautiful, exhausting watercolor painting of memories. It's painted in the scent of Johnson's baby powder and warm milk, the sound of your first gurgling laughs, the sight of your impossibly small fingers wrapping around one of mine with surprising strength. I remember the weight and warmth of your little body curled against my chest in the deep, quiet hours of the night. The world outside would be asleep, but our little universe would be wide awake in the soft glow of the nightlight. I'd rock you in that old wooden chair, the one that creaked in a rhythm that became our secret song, and I'd hum the lullabies my own mother once hummed to me. They were old, sad songs, about lonely sailors, and lost loves and faraway moons, but their melancholy melody always seemed to soothe you. Sometimes, even now, when the house is too quiet, and the ache in my chest is too loud, I catch myself humming that tune. It's a reflex, I suppose, a muscle memory of motherhood that my body refuses to forget. It's a song for a baby who is no longer here to be soothed. As you grew from a baby into a little girl, our home became your kingdom, and the heart of that kingdom, its grand capital, was the fortress we used to build in the living room. It was a sacred ritual. We'd pull all the cushions off the sofa, gathering every spare blanket and sheet we could find. We'd drape them over a carefully arranged perimeter of dining room chairs, creating our own secret cavernous world. You were the chief architect, directing my every move with grave importance. No, Mama, that sheet has to go over here. This is the secret escape tunnel. Inside our fortress, the world outside would disappear. The only light came from a big clunky flashlight, its yellow beam cutting through the dusty fabric-scented air, making our faces glow as if we were telling ghost stories around a campfire, and we would share secrets. Your secrets then were so pure, so beautifully simple. You once whispered to me, your voice full of awe, that you believed our old cat Marmalade could understand everything we said, but he chose not to speak because he knew all the world's secrets, and it was too great a burden to share. You told me you wanted to be an astronaut, not just to see the stars up close, but because you were convinced there was a new, undiscovered color in space, and you were going to be the one to find it and name it. Your father would always play his part in our ritual. He would become the fearsome dragon of the hallway. We'd hear his shuffling steps, then a low theatrical growl from the other side of our sheet walls.
Fee-fi-fo-fum.
I smell a delicious little girl and her mum. He'd roar, you'd squeal with delighted terror, scrambling to hide behind me, your body shaking with giggles. You can't get us, you silly dragon. You'd shout back, your voice full of a bravery that only exists in the safety of a father's game. Those afternoons, tucked away in our homemade castle, I felt like the richest woman in the world. I had my daughter's secrets, my husband's laughter, and a fortress to keep all the scary parts of the world at bay. Then there were the summers. Oh, those glorious, endless summers. They tasted of sweet iced tea, and smelled of freshly cut grass, and the chlorine from the neighborhood pool. Our backyard was your personal Eden. At its center stood the magnificent old oak tree your father had hung a swing from. That swing was your spaceship, your pirate ship, your magic carpet. I can still see you on it so clearly, your small body leaning back, your pigtails flying, your face tilted towards the sky, as you pumped your little legs with all your might. Higher, Mama, push me higher. You'd squeal, your voice a symphony of pure, unadulterated joy. I would push you until my arms ached, and my back protested, just to hear that sound, just to see you soar, to feel you flying free, even if it was only for a moment. We also had our garden, my little patch of earth by the back fence. You were my dedicated assistant. I'd give you your own little trowel, and you'd dig in the cool, dark soil beside me, your small hands, always so delicate next to mine, quickly becoming covered in dirt. You had a special, declared fondness for the marigolds. I once asked you why those were your favorites, among the roses and the daisies. You looked at me with the profound seriousness only a 5-year-old can muster and said, "Because they're not shy, Mama. Their color is loud, like a happy shout. They're happy flowers, And so we always planted rows of marigolds. They're still here, you know. They reseed themselves every year, a stubborn, beautiful line of fiery orange and yellow along the fence. They are a constant living reminder of those sun-drenched days. Sometimes, I confess to you now, I talk to them. It feels less foolish than talking to a silent telephone. I tell them you were the one who named them the happy flowers. I hope in some cellular, plant-like way, they remember the little girl who loved them for their loudness. I remember with piercing clarity the day you learned to ride your two-wheeler. It was a bright blue Schwinn with silver streamers on the handlebars that your father had found at a garage sale and lovingly restored. He'd spent a whole Saturday morning out in the garage, polishing the chrome and oiling the chain, just for you. For weeks he'd jogged alongside you down our quiet suburban street, his strong hand holding the back of the seat, a human training wheel. You'd wobble and protest. "Don't let go, Daddy. Promise you won't let go." That afternoon the air was warm and smelled of honeysuckle. He was jogging beside you, his breath coming in steady puffs, and then, without a word, in the middle of the sidewalk, he just let go. I was watching from the porch, my heart leaping into my throat. For one terrifying suspended moment, you wobbled violently. I saw your face, a flash of pure panic mixed with fierce determination. You almost went down, but then something clicked. You found your balance, you straightened the handlebars, and you were off, pedaling, slow at first, then faster, the silver streamers flying behind you like a comet's tail. You were so focused on the horizon ahead, on the sheer miracle of what you were doing, that you didn't even look back at first. You rode all the way to the end of the block. When you finally did turn and see us, standing there so far behind you, your father and I, your face broke into the most radiant, triumphant smile I had ever seen. It was pure accomplishment, and in that moment, I felt two things at once: a wave of pride so immense it almost knocked me over, and a sharp, unexpected pang of loss. It was the first time I truly, deeply understood that my most important job as your mother was to teach you, bit by bit, how to leave me. It was the first of many lessons in the art of letting go. The school years arrived in a flurry of book reports, science fair projects, and multiplication table became the center of our universe on weeknights. I can still picture you there, under the warm glow of the overhead light, your brows furrowed in concentration, chewing on the end of your pencil as you wrestled with long division or the periodic table. You'd get so frustrated sometimes, so convinced you'd never understand. You'd slam your book shut and declare it impossible. "I can't do it," you'd say, your eyes welling up with tears of frustration. "Yes, you can," I'd say, pulling my chair closer. "Let's just try it one more time, a different way." I wasn't a teacher, and honestly, I was often just a chapter ahead of you in the textbook. But I was patient. We'd work through the problems together, step by step, until that magical aha moment would dawn on your face. It was like watching a light switch on in a dark room. The frustration would melt away, replaced by the quiet, powerful glow of relief and understanding. "I get it now," you'd exclaim, and the pride in your own voice was my greatest reward. We had a tradition. After every one of these late-night study sessions, no matter how late it was, we'd celebrate your breakthrough with hot chocolate. Not the instant kind, but the real kind. We'd heat milk on the stove, whisking in the cocoa and a little bit of sugar. We had our own special mugs. Yours had a cartoon cat on it, and mine was a simple blue ceramic one. We'd sit there in the quiet kitchen, sipping our sweet reward, our little secret conspiracy against bedtime. In those moments I felt like I was giving you the keys to the world, one small hard one key at a time. I was teaching you that no problem was insurmountable, that frustration was just a temporary stop on the road to understanding. I just wish I could have taught you that the same was true for us. Those simple connected years eventually gave way to the turbulent storm of adolescence. It was as if a different person had moved into your room. My sweet, compliant little girl was replaced by a whirlwind of chaotic emotions, explosive music, slammed doors, and a wardrobe that consisted mainly of black. Our fortress in the living room was replaced by the locked door of your bedroom, a fortress I was not allowed to enter. The secrets we shared under a blanket were replaced by whispered, giggling phone calls with your friends that would abruptly stop the moment I walked into the room. I won't pretend it wasn't hard, it was agonizing. There were days I felt like I was walking on eggshells, trying to navigate the emotional minefield of your moods. I was talking to a stranger, a beautiful, moody, unpredictable stranger, who just happened to sleep down the hall. Our conversations, which had once flowed so easily, became clipped and tense. Where are you going? Out. With whom? Friends. When will you be back? Later. Looking back now, I see that so much of my reaction was driven by my own overwhelming fear. The world seemed so much larger and more dangerous than the one I had grown up in. All I wanted was to build that fortress around you again, to keep you safe from heartbreak, from bad decisions, from all the dangers I saw lurking around every corner. But you didn't want a fortress, you wanted to test your wings. You saw my protection as a cage, my concern as a lack of trust. We clashed, our deep love for each other becoming a battlefield of wills. I would lay down a rule out of fear, and you would break it out of a desperate need for your own identity, for independence. We hurt each other, often without meaning to, with words that were sharper than we intended. I was so afraid of losing you to the world that I was, in effect, pushing you away with my own hands. Yet, even in the middle of that teenage tempest, there were moments of grace, small pockets of calm that gave me hope. I remember one night vividly. We had had a terrible fight earlier that evening, over something that seems so trivial now, a party you wanted to go to. There was shouting, and tears, and a door slammed so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Hours later, long after I had gone to bed, my heart still aching from the anger, my bedroom door creaked open. It was you. Your eyes were red and puffy from crying. You didn't say a word. You just walked over to my bed, pulled back the covers, and crawled in beside me. You laid your head on my shoulder, your body curling into mine, just as you had when you were a little girl who'd had a nightmare. I wrapped my arms around you, holding you close, breathing in the familiar scent of your hair. We just lay there in the quiet darkness. The anger and the hurt words seemed to dissolve into the air between us, leaving only the profound, unbreakable love that had always been the foundation beneath it all. After a long time, you whispered into the darkness, your voice thick and small. "I'm sorry, Mum." "I'm sorry too, sweetie," I replied, stroking your hair, my own tears silently tracing paths down my temples. In that moment of truce, I believed we could survive anything. I believed that no matter how far you pushed away, no matter how much you needed to fight for your own space, the path back to me would always be open. You would always, always come back. It's a comforting lie we tell ourselves, isn't it? That some bonds are unbreakable. I held on to that belief, that single moment of truce in the dark of my bedroom, like a precious amulet. I saw it as proof that the foundation we'd built was strong enough to withstand any storm. I thought your teenage rebellion was the hurricane we had to survive, and having weathered it, we would be sailing into calmer waters. But I was wrong. That was just a summer squall. The true storm was still gathering, far out at sea, silent and menacing, and I was completely unaware of its approach. The world shifted on its axis the day your father got sick. It didn't happen all at once. It began with a tiredness he couldn't shake, a persistent cough we dismissed as a lingering cold. But then came the tests, the somber-faced doctors, and a word that shattered our world into a million pieces: cancer. The very sound of it felt alien in our sturdy, predictable life. It was a word that belonged to other families, to sad stories on the evening news. It did not belong in our house, with its scent of baking bread and garage grease. But it had come in, an unwelcome guest, and it refused to leave. You were only 16, on the cusp of your own life, and suddenly you were thrust into a world of hospital corridors and hushed, fearful conversations. You grew up so fast in those 18 months, Clara. It felt like I blinked, and the girl who argued about curfews was gone, replaced by a young woman with old, tired eyes. You were so incredibly strong. When I would come home from a long shift at the library, my mind and body aching with a bone-deep weariness, I would often find you with him. You'd be sitting by his bedside, not with the restless energy of a teenager, but with a profound and gentle stillness. You'd read him the sports section of the newspaper, your voice steady even when his breathing was labored. You'd adjust his pillows, fetch him a glass of water, or just sit there, holding his hand, telling him about your day at school, about a funny thing a teacher said, or a drama with your friends, weaving a thread of normalcy into the fabric of our terrifying new reality. I leaned on your strength far too much. I see that now. I was so consumed with the practicalities of the nightmare, navigating the labyrinth of insurance paperwork, scheduling appointments, trying to decipher medical jargon, all while attempting to keep my own terror from swallowing me whole, that I saw your competence and mistook it for peace. I saw a daughter who was coping, who was a rock. I failed to see the child who was losing her father, the teenager who was watching her hero fade before her eyes. I never asked you if you were scared. I never gave you permission to fall apart. I needed you to be strong, and so you were. What a terrible burden to place on a child's shoulders. The day he left us, the world didn't just go grey, it went silent. The vibrant symphony of our family life, with his booming laugh as the bass drum and your bright chatter as the melody, was reduced to the sound of two people breathing in an empty house. In those first few weeks we were like two shipwreck survivors, clinging to each other on a tiny, desolate raft. We planned the funeral in a daze. We accepted casseroles from pitying neighbors. We learned to navigate the echoing spaces he had once filled. We found a new rhythm, a quiet, somber duet. We'd have dinner together every night at the kitchen table, the third chair a gaping wound between us. You'd tell me about your day, and I'd tell you about mine. We talked, really talked, more than we had in years. We were forging a new bond, one tempered in the fires of grief. I thought it was the strongest bond of all. I thought, with the foolish certainty of the grieving, that having survived the ultimate loss, nothing could ever truly break us apart again. Your high school graduation came less than a year later. I sat in the audience on those uncomfortable metal folding chairs, my heart a painful, swelling mix of pride and sorrow. Your father should have been there. He should have been sitting next to me, his arm around my shoulder, his face beaming with that proud papa grin he did so well. When you walked up to the podium as valedictorian, you looked so poised, so beautiful and brilliant in your blue cap and gown. You looked out at the sea of faces, found my eyes, and you gave me a small, brave smile. Your speech was a testament to the woman you were becoming. You talked about the future, about challenges and dreams, and then you talked about your parents. You spoke of your father first. You said he had taught you how to fix things, not just the chain on your bike or a leaky faucet, but the broken parts of life. with patience and quiet strength. And then you talked about me. I remember your exact words. They are burned into my memory. And my mother, you said, your voice catching just for a second. She taught me how to grow things, not just the marigolds in our garden, but hope in the dark. She taught me that even after the harshest winter, spring will always, eventually come. The entire time you spoke, silent tears streamed down my face. They were tears of immense pride, of profound love, and of heartbreaking loss. I felt his presence so strongly in that moment, as if he were standing right behind you, his hands on your shoulders. That day, you were my sun, my moon, and all my stars, a brilliant constellation of the best parts of both of us, about to launch yourself into the universe. Your choice of a college, one on the opposite side of the country, was a quiet, painful blow. It felt like another loss, another piece of my life, moving impossibly far away. But I understood. You needed a fresh start, a place that wasn't haunted by memories, a place where you could be just Clara, not the poor girl whose father just died. I never let you see my heart break. I smiled, and told you how proud I was, how exciting this new adventure would be. The love of a mother, I was learning, often means smiling through your own pain to give your child the freedom to fly. I helped you pack up your room, a process that felt like excavating an archaeological dig of our life together. Each item we wrapped in newspaper, a worn-out teddy bear named Barnaby, a shoebox full of concert ticket stubs, a stack of old diaries tied with a faded ribbon, was a memory I had to seal away. The day we drove to the airport was surreal. We stood at the security gate, the final barrier between our old life and your new one. I tried to memorize your face, the way your eyes sparkled with a potent cocktail of excitement and sheer terror. "Call me when you land," I said, my voice thick and wobbly, betraying the calm facade I was trying so hard to maintain. "I will, Mom," you promised, hugging me tight, your arms wrapped around my neck. For a moment you were my little girl again. "I love you more," I whispered back, our silly familiar refrain. I watched you walk away, merging into the crowd of travelers, until you were just a flash of your blue jacket, and then you were gone. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where you had been, before turning to walk back to my car, to our house, which was now for the first time, truly and completely empty. And then came David. You brought him home for Thanksgiving during your junior year of college, and our world tilted again. You'd been talking about him for months during our Sunday night calls, which by then had already started to feel a little more rushed, a little less intimate. But when you spoke of David, your voice would regain its old animation. He was brilliant, you said, top of his class in the pre-med program. He was ambitious, driven, and he challenged you in ways no one ever had. He saw your potential, you told me, and he pushed you to be better. I was so ready to love him, because you did. The moment he walked through my front door, a knot formed in my stomach. He was handsome, I suppose, if you like that polished, manicured look. He wore a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill, and shoes that didn't have a single scuff on them. He shook my hand, his grip firm, his eyes looking straight through me with a cool, appraising confidence. As he stepped inside, I saw his gaze sweep across our living room, our comfortable, slightly worn sofa, the bookshelves overflowing with paperbacks, the framed photos of you as a child on the mantelpiece. He surveyed it all with a detached curiosity, like an anthropologist studying the quaint customs of a primitive tribe. I tried so hard, Clara. I really did. I put on my brightest hostess smile, and asked him about his family, his studies, his life. His answers were polite, but brief and clinical, as if he were being interviewed for a position he wasn't particularly interested in. The conversation at the dinner table was an exercise in frustration. I would try to draw him out, to find the person you had fallen for, but it was like trying to grasp smoke. He wasn't interested in anecdotes or feelings. He was interested in achievements and 5-year plans. He spoke at length about his father's successful surgical practice in Connecticut, the importance of networking, and the stock portfolio he was already building. I tried to tell a funny story about the time you, at age 6, decided to help your father fix the lawnmower and ended up filling the gas tank with water from the garden hose. It was one of your dad's favorite stories. As I told it, I watched David's face. He didn't laugh. He didn't even smile, really. He just produced a tight, polite twitch of the lips, and as soon as I finished, turned to you and said, "Speaking of mechanics, Clara, you should tell your mother about the grant proposal you're working on for the neurobiology lab. The research is truly groundbreaking." He didn't seem to see you, the giggling girl who filled a lawnmower with water. He saw a partner, an asset, a fellow high achiever who would be a credit to him as he ascended the ladder of success. He loved your shine, but I was terrified he would try to polish away all your wonderful human messy imperfections. The breaking point came in the kitchen as we were clearing the plates. The air was thick with the scent of turkey and unspoken tensions. You turned to me, your eyes shining with a desperate, hopeful light. "So, what do you think? Isn't he wonderful?" Here it was, the moment that would change everything. My heart screamed at me to lie. Just smile and say, "He's lovely, honey. I can see you're so happy." But my fear for you, my fierce protective love, it formed a lump in my throat, and I couldn't swallow it down. I hesitated for just a second too long, and in that second the light in your eyes dimmed. You saw it. "What is it, Mum?" you asked, your voice instantly sharp and defensive. I fumbled for the right words, but they all came out wrong. "It's nothing, sweetie. He's very accomplished," I said, the word sounding as hollow and inadequate as it was. "Accomplished," you repeated, your voice laced with disbelief. "That's all you can say." "He just seems a little serious for you," I stammered, digging the hole deeper. "You've always been so full of light, of laughter." And then you said the thing that felt like a deliberate, cruel stab to my heart. "You mean he's not like Dad?" you snapped. "He's not some simple small-town mechanic. He has goals. We have goals." The word simple, when you used it to describe your father, the kindest, most intelligent, and most profoundly content man I had ever known, it broke something in me. His hands weren't simple. They could build, create, and comfort. His happiness wasn't simple. It was deep and hard-won. "Your father was a great man, Clara," I said, my voice dangerously quiet and cold. "And he was happy. He found success in joy, in his family, in a life well lived. There are other kinds of goals than the ones you can list on a resume. You just don't like David because he's different," you accused, your voice rising. "You think he's not good enough for me." "No, Clara," I said, my voice finally shaking with the force of my conviction. "I'm worried he doesn't think you're good enough, or rather that he only values the parts of you that are presentable and polished." It was the wrong thing to say, a catastrophically wrong thing to say. I had taken this beautiful, shining thing, your first adult love, and I had thrown my fear and judgment all over it like a bucket of mud. I saw the walls slam down in your eyes. It was a look I recognized from your teenage years, but this time it wasn't hot with fleeting anger. It was cold, hard, and permanent. The rest of the visit was a torturous exercise in politeness. David was icily civil. You were quiet and resentful. The moment their car pulled out of the driveway, the silence that filled the house was no longer just empty. It was hostile. That Thanksgiving was the beginning of the end. The phone calls, already dwindling, became even more sparse and stilted. We spoke of the weather, of your classes in the most superficial terms. Our conversations became minefields of things unsaid, of topics too dangerous to touch. David was the great, unspoken landmine between us. I was afraid to ask about him, and you were quick to interpret any question as criticism. The easy flowing river of our communication had dried up, leaving a rocky barren riverbed that was treacherous to navigate. The final shattering blow came a year and a half later, at Christmas. It was the first Christmas you were supposed to spend at home since that awful Thanksgiving, and I had poured all my hopes for our reconciliation into the holiday. I was practically giddy with anticipation. I bought the biggest, most beautiful Fraser fir I could find. I spent days decorating the house, pulling out all the old ornaments, the ones your small hands had helped me hang for years. I planned a feast of all your favorite foods: roast turkey with my special cornbread stuffing, creamy mashed potatoes, and the pumpkin pie from your grandmother's recipe. I imagined us sitting by the fire, drinking the rich, dark hot chocolate we both loved, the warmth of the fire melting the ice that had formed between us. I was so hopeful, so painfully naive. You called me 1 week before you were scheduled to fly home. I saw your name flash on the screen, and my heart did a little flip of pure joy. "Hi, Mom," you said. Your voice sounded thin and strained. "Clara, honey, I was just thinking about you. I can't wait for you to get here. The house smells like pine needles and cinnamon." There was a pause, a terrible heavy dead air pause that told me everything before you said a word. "Mom, about that," you started, and I felt the floor drop out from under me. "Something's come up. David's parents have invited us to join them in Aspen for Christmas. It's a huge family tradition for them, and it's really important to David, and to his father, that we go." Aspen. The word sounded so foreign, so impossibly glamorous and far away. It was a word from a different world, a world of cashmere sweaters and ski chalets, a world that had nothing to do with me or my cozy little house with its lovingly decorated tree. I couldn't speak. The beautiful festive world I had constructed in my mind shattered into a million icy shards. "Oh," I finally managed to say. The word was a pathetic little puff of air. "I'm really, really sorry," you said, and I think in that moment, a small part of you actually was. It was all very last minute. David's father is trying to set up a meeting for him with a top surgeon there. It's a huge career opportunity. His career, his family, his traditions. I was just a scheduling conflict. "We can do a late Christmas," you offered, your voice brightening with the false hope of an easy solution. "Maybe in January. I'll come home then." "A late Christmas," I repeated, my voice numb. "That's not the same thing, Clara." "I know, Mom, but please try to understand. This is really important." And that's when my hurt, which had been a cold, heavy stone in my gut, finally ignited into white-hot anger. It was the anger of the abandoned, the betrayed. "What am I supposed to do with all this food, Clara?" I asked, my voice trembling with a petty, wounded rage. It was a foolish thing to focus on, but it was the only tangible thing I could grasp. The 20-pound turkey in my freezer, the pies I was going to bake for you. "Mom, don't do this," you said, your voice losing its apologetic tone, and taking on that familiar edge of irritation. "Don't make this harder than it already is. I feel bad enough." "Do you?" I shot back, the words tasting like acid. "Do you really? Or are you just annoyed that I'm not making it easy for you to discard 17 years of our family's history for a ski trip?" "That is so unfair," you said, your voice rising to meet my anger. "You're being completely unreasonable. I am trying to build a future, a life. You're stuck in the past, Mom. You want everything to stay exactly the same, but it can't." "I'm not stuck in the past, Clara." I was openly sobbing now, the ugly, gulping sobs of someone who has lost all control. "I'm your mother. I wanted to spend Christmas with my only daughter. Is that so completely unreasonable?" There was a cold, deadly silence on the other end of the line, and then your voice, flat and devoid of all emotion, said the words that would haunt me for years. I can't talk to you when you're like this. I have to go. I'll call you after the holidays." And then you hung up. I stood there in the middle of my festive silent living room, holding the dead phone to my ear, listening to the dial tone. The silence that rushed in to fill the space was the most profound, the most absolute I have ever experienced. It was the sound of a door slamming shut in a faraway city. It was the sound of a lock turning, a key breaking. It was the sound of a final, definitive ending. The void I had felt creeping at the edges of my life had now opened up right at my feet, a chasm so deep and so dark. I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that I would never be able to cross it. The first year of silence was the loudest of my life. The quiet of the house became a roaring amplifier for the arguments in my own head. Every day was a battle. I'd wake up, and for a blissful, foggy second, I would forget. The world would feel normal. Then the memory would crash into me, a physical blow, and the weight of your absence would settle over me for the rest of the day. The silence wasn't an absence of sound. It was a deafening presence, a constant ringing in my ears that was the sound of your voice not being there. I spent that first Christmas alone. After our phone call, I stood motionless in the living room for what felt like hours. The twinkling lights on the tree, which had filled me with such joy and hope just minutes before, now seemed to mock me, each tiny bulb a piercing, indifferent star. The next day, I took down the decorations. Each ornament I unwrapped was a memory I had to face. The clumsy clay handprint you made in kindergarten, the glitter-covered pine cone from your first year of brownies, the delicate glass angel we bought together on a trip to the city. I packed them all away, one by one, burying our shared history in a cardboard box. I couldn't cook the turkey. The thought of all that food, all that effort for a celebration that would not happen, was too much to bear. I ate toast for Christmas dinner, sitting at the kitchen table and staring at your empty chair. During that year, my grief and hurt hardened into a rigid, protective shell of resentment. The story I told myself was simple, clean, and sharp. It was a story in which I was the blameless victim, the loving mother cast aside. You were the ungrateful daughter, cold and cruel, easily swayed by the superficial glamour of a new life and a man who didn't value family. David was the convenient villain, the slick interloper who had deliberately severed our bond. This narrative became my shield. It was easier to be angry at you, to despise him, than it was to face the terrifying, messy alternative that I had played a part in my own heartbreak. It was easier to feel wronged than it was to feel responsible. My life became a ritual of waiting. Every time the phone rang, my entire body would seize with a jolt of adrenaline, a painful, desperate hope that it might be you. It never was. It was always a telemarketer, a neighbor, or a wrong number. Each call was a fresh disappointment, a small, sharp reminder of your silence. I became obsessed with my phone, checking it constantly for a text, a missed call, an email. I'd type out long, rambling messages to you, my thumbs flying across the tiny screen, pouring out all my anger and pain. How could you do this to me? After everything, your father would be so ashamed. Then my anger would give way to pleading. Please just call me Clara. I just want to hear your voice. I'm so sorry. I'd read them over and over, my vision blurred by tears, before deleting every word, unable to bear the thought of sending my raw, desperate heart out into a void that would offer no reply. For your birthday that year, I walked through the card aisle at the drugstore for an hour, my hand hovering over dozens of cards. The cheerful, celebratory ones felt like a lie. The sentimental ones felt like a knife to the chest. I finally chose a simple one with a watercolor painting of a bird on a branch. Inside, I wrote only 5 words. Thinking of you today, love Mom. I addressed it to your last known apartment, my handwriting shaky. Dropping that thin paper envelope into the blue mailbox felt like launching a message in a bottle into a vast indifferent ocean. I had no idea if it would ever reach you, or if you'd even open it if it did. It was a desperate, futile gesture of a love that had nowhere else to go. The change, when it came, didn't arrive with a thunderclap. It arrived with the smell of dust and old paper, in the quiet of the attic on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I had gone up there to find an old blanket, and my foot bumped against a cardboard box, its lid sagging with age. In your father's familiar blocky handwriting, it read Clara's school stuff. I hadn't looked inside that box since you'd left for college. My heart started to beat a little faster. With a hesitant breath, I sat down on the dusty floorboards, the rain pattering a gentle rhythm on the roof above me, and I lifted the lid. The box was a time capsule. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a collection of your childhood achievements. There were crayon drawings of our family, where you always drew the sun with a smiling face in the corner of the page. There was your first book report, on Charlotte's Web, your handwriting still a clumsy rounded script. I found a report card from the 3rd grade. In the comments section, your teacher, Mrs. Gable, had written, "Clara is an absolute joy to have in class. She is a bright, kind soul, always full of light." A bright, kind soul. The words pierced me. Where had that soul gone, or had I just stopped being able to see it? And then at the very bottom, I found it, an essay, written on blue-lined paper, for your 8th grade English class. The assignment, printed at the top, was my hero. I smiled, remembering this. I remembered you working on it at the kitchen table, chewing your pen and looking so serious. I had always assumed you'd written about your father, or maybe Marie Curie, your scientific idol at the time. But as my eyes scanned the first line, the air left my lungs. The essay was about me. I read your words, the words of a 13-year-old girl trying to make sense of the world. You wrote about how I wasn't afraid of the big spiders that sometimes appeared in the bathtub, how I would calmly scoop them up in a jar and set them free outside. You wrote about how my hot chocolate could cure anything, from a scraped knee to a failed math test. You wrote, "My mom is my hero because she is strong and she is always there. When I am sad or scared, she knows what to do. No matter what, I know my mom is in my corner." Sitting there, on the floor of the cold, dusty attic, I broke down. It was a different kind of crying. It wasn't the hot, angry tears of self-pity I had been crying for a year. It was a deep, soul-shattering sob of profound grief. I was grieving for the woman in that essay, the hero who always knew what to do. When had I stopped being her, or had I ever truly been her at all? The girl who wrote those words seen me as infallible, a pillar of strength and wisdom, and perhaps in the most dangerous corner of my heart, I had started to believe it myself. That armor of victimhood I had worn for so long finally cracked, and in the space it left, a painful, terrifying question began to bloom. What was my part in this? What had I done to make my daughter feel that she couldn't come to the person who was supposed to be always in her corner? That essay was the key that unlocked a door I had been too afraid to open. It forced me to start the painful process of rewinding the tape of our life together, but this time, I forced myself to watch it from a different angle. I had to see it, through your eyes. All those arguments during your teenage years, the ones I had framed as my protections and concern, I saw them now for what they must have felt like to you: control. A constant suffocating message that I didn't trust your judgment, that I didn't believe you were capable of navigating the world on your own, that you had to remain small and close for me to feel safe. My fear for you had become a cage, and you had rightly fought for your freedom. Then I had to face the hardest memory of all, David. My judgment of him had been so swift, so absolute. I had dismissed him as cold, ambitious and wrong for you, but I never once stopped to ask myself why you loved him. You had told me, right at the start, "He challenges me." Maybe you needed to be challenged. Maybe you were tired of being Clara, the sweet girl. Perhaps you yearned to be Clara, the brilliant woman. Maybe his ambition mirrored your own, a part of you that I had failed to see or encourage because it didn't fit into the cozy, familiar picture I had of our life. I had wanted you to stay my happy-go-lucky girl who planted marigolds, but you were trying to become a woman who conquered neurobiology. My love had been nostalgic, his perhaps was aspirational. Was that inherently wrong? I replayed that disastrous Thanksgiving dinner in my mind, cringing at my own behavior. I saw my passive-aggressive remarks, my disapproving glances, the way I wielded our shared memories as a weapon against your new life. I had put you in an impossible position, forcing you to defend your choice, to defend the man you loved, against the mother you loved. I had made it a battle, and then I was shocked when I sustained casualties. And that final Christmas phone call, hearing my own words echo in my memory, was excruciating. What am I supposed to do with all this food? The petulance, the emotional blackmail. I had made my happiness your responsibility. I hadn't been listening to you at all. I wasn't trying to understand your dilemma, your desire to support your partner and his career. I only heard my own disappointment, my own needs, and your final angry words before you hung up. You're stuck in the past. The phrase had wounded me so deeply at the time, but now, with a horrifying clarity, I saw the undeniable truth in it. I was stuck. I was grieving your father. I was grieving your childhood, and I was trying to hold on to you, the last remnant of the family we had been, so tightly that I was choking the life out of our relationship. The harder I squeezed, the more desperately you needed to get away, just to be able to breathe. My garden became my sanctuary during this slow, painful unraveling. I started spending hours out there, my hands plunged deep into the cool, dark earth. A garden, I learned, is a powerful teacher of acceptance. The work is simple, repetitive, and profoundly honest. As I pulled out the stubborn weeds that threatened to choke my flowers, I began to feel like I was clearing out the weeds of resentment and blame in my own heart. It was slow, back-breaking work, and some of the roots were deeper than I ever imagined. I learned that you cannot force a seed to sprout. You can't command a rose to bloom on you. You can only do your part. You can prepare the soil. You can provide water and sunlight. You can protect it from pests. But then you have to let go. You have to trust in the process, in the life force within the seed itself. I realized I had never done that with you. I had always been trying to tend you, to prune you, to shape you into the person I thought you should be. I had not trusted you to bloom on your own. I started to tentatively rebuild a life for Ellen, not just for Clara's mom. I rejoined the book club I'd dropped out of years ago. I forced myself to call old friends I had neglected. I remember having coffee with my friend Sarah, and for the first time I spoke my new truth out loud. I think I drove her away, I whispered, the words feeling foreign and terrifying on my tongue. I think my love was too heavy. Sarah didn't offer platitudes, she just listened, and nodded, and her quiet understanding was a balm on my raw, exposed heart. The silence from your end of the line hadn't changed, but the silence inside me was beginning to. It was no longer a screaming, angry void. It was transforming into a quiet space, a space for reflection, a space where I could finally begin to untangle the fierce, beautiful, and painful knot of our shared history. It was a space where, for the first time in a very long time, I could begin to hear my own thoughts again, and I was learning to find a strange, fragile peace in that quiet. My dearest Clara, the rain has stopped. The moon, full and serene, has finally found a wide break in the clouds. It's casting a soft, milky light into the room, painting silvery stripes across the old wooden floorboards where you once sat and played with your dolls. It's funny how the world keeps turning, how the moon keeps its steadfast, silent schedule, entirely indifferent to the quiet battles being fought and resolved in the small houses below. For such a long time, I resented that cosmic indifference. I wanted the world to stop, to thunder and rage with me, to acknowledge the magnitude of my pain. But tonight, I find a strange and profound comfort in its steadfastness. It's a quiet reminder that life goes on, that storms pass, and that even the longest, darkest nights eventually give way to the gentle light of morning. This letter, this long meandering journey through our shared past, it feels like the final act of that storm passing through me. For years these memories, these regrets, these unspoken words have been swirling inside me, a chaotic and painful tempest, but writing them down, laying them out one by one, has felt like lancing a wound. It has been painful, yes, but it is the clean, necessary pain that precedes healing. I see now that this letter was never truly for you. It was for me. It was a map I had to draw to find my way back to myself. It was a place to pour out all the poison of my anger and my sorrow, so that something new, something peaceful, could finally have room to grow. And the first thing I know I must grow in this newly tilled soil of my heart is forgiveness. Forgiveness, I've learned, is not a simple one-time declaration. It's a quiet daily practice, like tending a garden, and it has to begin at home, within myself. First, and perhaps most difficult, I need to forgive myself. I forgive myself for all the mistakes I made, for the countless times my own fear spoke louder than my wisdom, for the moments my love became a weight instead of a wing. I forgive myself for not being the perfect, all-knowing hero from your 8th grade essay. She was a beautiful illusion, a projection of a daughter's love, and I was a fool to ever think I could live up to her. I was just a woman, doing the best she could with the heart she was given, a heart that was often overflowing with more love than it knew what to do with. I remember one afternoon, you were about 10, and you were trying to build a complicated birdhouse for a school project. You were getting so frustrated, the little wooden pieces weren't fitting together, and you were on the verge of tears. I came in, and instead of patiently helping you figure it out, I took over. I, with my adult hands and impatience, essentially built it for you. You got an arm the project. But I remember the look on your face when you took it to school. It wasn't pride, it was a quiet sort of shame. You knew it wasn't really yours. My intention was to help you, to save you from frustration. But what I actually did was rob you of the chance to solve the problem yourself, to feel the pride of your own accomplishment. My love in that moment was flawed. It was clumsy, it was imperfect, and I forgive myself for that. I forgive the woman who sometimes loved too much, and in all the wrong ways. She was only ever trying to keep you safe and happy. And now, my sweet girl, I need to forgive you. This was the part that felt impossible for so long. How could I forgive the silence? How could I forgive the years of unanswered calls, the holidays spent in a hollow house, the feeling of being utterly erased? But as I sit here tonight, in the quiet glow of the moon, I understand that my forgiveness is not a gift I am bestowing upon you. You are out there living your life, and I have no idea if you are seeking or even wanting my absolution. This forgiveness is a gift I must give to myself. It is the act of finally putting down the heavy, jagged stone of resentment that I have been carrying for years, a stone that was only ever weighing me down. So I forgive you. I forgive you for growing up and for growing away. I forgive you for needing to become your own person, even if that person was a stranger to me for a time. I forgive you for choosing a different path, for building a different life, for valuing things that I did not understand. I forgive you for falling in love with a man I could not bring myself to like. I forgive you for not needing me anymore in the ways I so desperately wanted to be needed. And I forgive you for the silence. I don't think I will ever fully understand it, and I accept that now. A part of my heart will likely always ache with the phantom limb of our severed connection. But I choose to believe, for my own peace, that you did not do it out of cruelty. You did it because, for reasons of your own, it was what you needed to do to survive, to find your own air to breathe, to become the woman you were meant to be. And a mother's love, if it is to be true and whole, must ultimately want what is best for her child, even if what's best is a life that doesn't have her in it. This long, quiet process of reflection has fundamentally changed my understanding of what love is, of what motherhood is. For most of your life, I thought love was about holding on. It was about protecting, guiding, shielding. It was about being the sun that your entire world revolved around. I see now, that was the love of a gardener who is afraid to let her prize rose face the wind. The truest form of love, the most courageous and profound love, is about letting go. It's about tending the soil, providing the nourishment, and then having the faith to allow the flower to grow towards its own sun, even if it means it has to turn its face away from you. My job wasn't to keep you in my garden forever. It was to give you strong enough roots that you could be successfully transplanted anywhere and still thrive. And I believe I did that. That's a comfort I am finally allowing myself to feel. The anger and the silence, they are part of our story. But they are not the whole story. The foundation we built in all those years before the storm is still there. The love, the laughter, the forts we built, the secrets we shared, the thousands of bedtime stories, and scraped knees I kissed better. That doesn't just get erased. It's woven into the very fabric of who you are. It's in your resilience, in your bright mind, in the kindness I know you are still capable of. That love is my true legacy in your life. It is the roots. I have to trust that they are still there, deep within you, nourishing you in ways that neither of us may even be aware of. I no longer live my life waiting for the phone to ring. That frantic, hopeful leap of my heart has been replaced by a quiet stillness. It took a long time, but it has happened. I am no longer a ghost in my own house, haunting the hallways of my memory. I am a woman who lives here. I have my book club on Tuesdays, where we argue passionately about characters and drink cheap red wine. I have my garden, which gives me blisters on my hands and peace in my soul. I've started taking a pottery class at the community center. My creations are clumsy and misshapen, but they are mine, and I find a simple, profound joy in the feeling of cool, wet clay spinning between my hands. I have friends. I have my own life. It's a quiet life, but it is full. I still think of you every single day. That will never change. I think of you when I see a young woman with a wild halo of curly hair and I smile. I think of you when I'm in the grocery store and I pass the hot chocolate mix. I think of you when the first marigolds of the season open their loud, happy faces to the sun. But the thoughts are different now. The sharp, stabbing pain of longing has softened into a gentle, wistful ache. It's less a wound and more a scar. A reminder of something that was, something that shaped me, but something that no longer bleeds. My thoughts of you are now prayers, in their own quiet way. I wonder if you're happy. I truly, deeply hope that you are. I wonder if you ever did find that new, undiscovered color out in the world. I wonder if David, in the end, learned to see not just your accomplishments but the beautiful, mischievous light in your soul. I hope he treasures it. I hope you have people in your life who make you feel seen and loved for exactly who you are. I hope your life is full of purpose and passion and joy. Maybe one day, years from now, when the seasons of our lives have turned many more times, your phone will ring, and it will be me. And my voice won't be heavy with the weight of expectation or the acid of unspoken resentments. It will be light. It will just be me, Ellen, a woman who is whole on her own, a woman who would nevertheless be genuinely overjoyed to hear the voice of her daughter again. And maybe in that future you'll be ready and willing to answer. We could have a new beginning, one built not on the past but on two people who have grown and changed. But if that day never comes, I want you to know in whatever way the universe has of conveying these things that it's okay. I will be okay. My peace is no longer contingent on your response. I have found it within myself, in the soil of my garden, in the quiet of my home, in the acceptance of our story as it is, not as I wished it would be. I have learned to be a mother who loves enough to let her child be free completely and truly. So sleep well, my darling Clara, wherever you are in this big wide world. Know that you are loved, not with a grasping needy love that demands to be seen, but with a quiet steady unconditional love that simply wishes you peace, the kind of love that can finally say, I love you, and not need to hear it back to know that it is true. All my love forever, Mom.